You guys, I am so excited to be back on again with Gisele from the Cosmic Laundry. You guys are in for a treat today because Gisele is going to go through my chart and you guys are going to get to see the ins and outs of Rachel Fialco here through the eyes of Gisele and her reading of Human Design and Astrology. Gisele, welcome back. I'm so excited for our reading today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be back too. I feel a lot more like alive today than I did last time. So I'm excited to go into your charts and just see, what's all in there.
Cool. And I've know that we've had a reading before, but I wanted to just I really love your style and I love basically how you highlight on careers. You highlight on like the different goddess energy that's an asteroid energy within my chart. You mentioned something about having the moon archetypes and we didn't go into that last time. So I want to look at love, I want to look at work, and we talked a little bit about like what area of being a therapist I want to go into. And we talked a lot about sexuality and helping women heal that and healing that relationship with myself and love and all the things. So, whatever jumps out at you today, let's get into it.
Yeah, well, we could definitely chat about the moon archetypes. I think that's where like the bread and butter of this work is for me. Like if I had to choose to really only like to super niche, I would work with the moon and moon archetypes, or maybe Venus, maybe a blend of both. But the moon, we didn't talk about those at all. Like nothing.
Don't remember. I mean, I know I had a square in my chart and you had, I don't know if that was one of the planets in it, but we talked about how, you focus that energy and use it as a strength later on. So, I mean, remind me of all.
Yeah, so you have a couple of different moon archetypes. So these are archetypes that I've created. I have a very archetypal type of brain. Like I really like to look at patterns in human behavior, which is obviously duh. That's why I'm drawn to astrology. And so the moon archetypes are something that I've created just to help me have language when I'm explaining these certain patterns and instinctual behaviors that I see in clients. There are probably like infinite number of these moon archetypes, but there's 4 that I work with, and I call them the mermaid, the muse, the sage, and the oracle. And you have the oracle, the mermaid. Let's see, do you have any of the others? You have the mermaid and the oracle for sure. And yeah, you have the oracle doubled. You have that twice. And so the mermaid is an archetype of someone who really craves passion and depth in life. It's very similar to like if you've been paying attention to my work around magical hot girls and those archetypes, the mermaid would be akin to the enchantress. And so mermaids are here to have was that your top one
Yeah.
on your, when you did the search?
You know what? I did that test like 3 times and I was like,
Yeah.
come on, I gotta be something else. I know I'm like, there was another one I felt like the Star Child or
The
something.
star girl.
Star Girl.
The
I was like,
star girl is the oracle. So oracle, and so you would be high on star girl as well.
okay.
Yeah.
But I kept getting Enchantress, and I'm like, I guess I'm the
Yeah.
Enchantress.
That one is really, it's a really overpowering archetype because, so this is kind of how I work with them. The mermaid is very specific to if you have Pluto moon connections. So you can have Pluto Venus connections, you can have Pluto Sun connections, and all of those different types of Scorpio plutonic energy goes under this umbrella that I call the enchantress. So you could have someone with a Scorpio moon and someone with Venus Pluto conjunction. All of those people are going to resonate with the enchantress, but the mermaid is very specific to what happens when the moon and Pluto are in alignment or connected in the chart in some way. And the moon archetypes always have a journey of healing required to get. There's kind of this like golden nugget at the end of the journey. It's a very archetypal journey that we go on. And these parts of us can be so challenging to navigate. They can create a lot of pain in our lives, but that pain is meant to kind of wake us up and to help us develop the gifts that we need to develop to get to that kind of like golden egg at the end. And so mermaids are here to live very passionate, very intimate, very deep lives. And because of that, mermaids sometimes have a hard time with the mundane aspects of life. My mermaid clients are the ones that are like, my husband is nice, but I'm leaving him because he's so boring. Or like, my job pays me really well, but I just don't feel fulfilled, right? There's like this really deep intrinsic need to feel very, very alive. It's like an Anise Nin, Sylvia Plath kind of energy.
I completely say that that is how I feel internally about things.
Yes. So, astrologers a lot of times are some of the smartest people on the planet. They're so logical, they're so intelligent, but sometimes there's unless they study psychological astrology or archetypal astrology, sometimes there's a lack of awareness of why these darker, more challenging parts of our psyche exist. There's a lack of understanding the magic of some of these challenges, right? Very like Clarissa Pinkola Estes, like Women Who Run with the Wolves kind of vibes. And a lot of the things that you'll see online about the moon archetypes, so having Pluto and the moon connected, Uranus and the moon, Neptune and the moon, Saturn and the moon, they're all very doom and gloom and very like, poo poo, sucks that you have this, you're lost, da da da. They don't always recognize the gifts and the medicine that come with them. And so that's why I started to do a lot of work around them. So yeah, you have the mermaid, which really is such an overpowering, instinctual, intuitive, deep archetype. And then you also have the oracle, and oracles really need to live authentic lives. Oracles are very attuned to things like astrology, human design, tarot. A lot of times oracles get wisdom or like prophecy that comes through dreams. There's just a depth of knowing. There's a ability to know what is coming and a gift for analyzing and recognizing patterns. Does that make sense?
1000%. And it's interesting that you say like a gift for recognizing patterns, because I think I see patterns in myself and other
Mm-hmm.
people so clearly. And
Yeah.
which is why I was drawn to psychology and studying this, and now, trying to become a psychotherapist. And yeah, makes complete sense. And I feel like a very innate or inner drive to be true to myself always. Yeah.
Yes. And that's really what it is. Like oracles want to understand the secrets of life. There's a very almost like alien quality to the oracle where oracles can kind of be like, I don't feel like I belong or I fit in anywhere. And it's because you're so multidimensional and so authentic and so true to yourself that you can't really be conditioned. And some of the challenges that oracles have is sometimes oracles can become highly, highly anxious. There's a tendency to want to figure life out, to know everything. My oracle clients are the ones that are like, can I book in with you every single month and you can tell me everything that's going to happen? And I'm like, no, that is not good for your psyche. Let's
Yeah.
not do that.
Actually supposed to
But there's
learn.
yes, yeah, there's like this tendency with oracles to almost like try to feel safe in the world by predicting everything. And so it's the path with the oracle is learning when to surrender and to just live life. And then knowing that, yeah, do have these really beautiful magical gifts of prediction, of looking into the future, of understanding, of knowing. And so you have to find a way to ground both of those.
Wow, that's so great. That's makes so much sense.
So yeah, those are two of the archetypes, and you have those ones. I also think too, when we're working with the moon, it's also, oh, you have the muse too, actually, because you have Neptune in the fourth. So this one might not resonate as much because it's not as connected to the moon specifically, but it's connected to your fourth house. And muses are very daydreamy, very artistic, very romantic, very sensitive. Muses have a very hard time being on the planet because it's almost like feeling too sensitive for the like density of what it's like being here. But muses have the gift of, channeling, of bringing things from the ethers and bringing them into the 3D world. So our poets, our painters, our artists, our inventors, people who, those people that you meet and they seem kind of spacey, they seem kind of daydreamy, they're very whimsical. And then you sit down and chat with them and you're like, whoa, there's so much depth and magic to this person. That's the muse. They're usually always living between worlds. They're here and they're in the ethers. They're here and they're in the eternal. This would be aligned with the fairy, with the magical hot girl archetypes. And so The muse energy usually has to learn how to be in a physical body. You have to learn how to be grounded here and to not always be disassociating or numbing, or like, the low road can be substance abuse or like rolling through TikTok. There's another way that people think is not escaping, but sometimes muses will escape through spirituality, just wanting to spend all of their time journaling and meditating and talking to angels and guides and not really being present on the planet. But muses are really special. Muses are here to bring new things into the collective. And there's also a very like angelic, ethereal, alien like quality to muses as well.
I feel like I definitely can immerse myself in all the things spiritual and tune out a lot. And I often wonder, it's so funny. I often wonder if people meet me and they think I'm just like some crazy, like, like nut, sometimes because I have so much energy and I'm so like, ah, or I'm intense or whatever. They might think I'm spacey and out there, but I feel like I actually know a lot of things at the same
Yeah,
time.
and you would, right? With just like that oracle energy, that muse energy. Your Mercury's in the 11th house, so you're very curious. You know a lot of things about a lot of different, subjects. So there is this like, I bet that's interesting for you because you have this like Libra rising, Cancer midheaven, very like feminine, very soft maybe, but Cancer doesn't always come across as soft. But there's a felt experience of Libra risings, especially where you're like, oh, they're really beautiful and they're very sweet and they're very kind, and then you have all of these layers of intricacies and you're so deep and you just know so much and you know so many of the like, secrets and mysteries of the universe. I'm sure that that's very interesting for people as they get to know you.
I think so, yeah.
Did we talk about your North Node in your last reading? Or did we mostly go into your basics?
I don't think we talked too much about the North Node the last time.
Because you have your North Node in Taurus in the eighth house. And so the North Node really speaks to our soul purpose, right? Like the energetics that our soul wants to develop. And it's not always external. So it's not that you have to like go out and do these things in the world and be known for them. It's like an internal energetic shift. And people with the North Node in Taurus are really here to learn how to be sensual, how to experience pleasure, how to embrace what is simple, how to not worry so much about having a complex or chaotic life. Sometimes with the North Node in Taurus, it's similar to that mermaid energy where you can be really drawn to things that are not good for you, and you can be really have a tendency to blow up your life because you're kind of bored and the stability is like not exciting or fun. And so you're learning how to enjoy the like very simple pleasures of life. You're learning how to enjoy being in a body, smelling roses, having a bath, napping, sleeping in, you're here to enjoy these aspects of life that we often take for granted. Do you feel like where are you at with that North Node journey? Are you starting to slow down a little bit more as you get older?
I think so. I mean, I always am involved in so many different things and have so many different passions. I do jujitsu and I do wrestling and yoga, and I'm a yoga teacher and I'm on a yoga retreat right now in Lisbon, and I love to travel and experience new things. But I think in my day to day, I am really learning how to slow down. And I think sensuality has been heightened for me a lot. I mean, it always has been there. I'm like a very sensual person, like very passionate, not just sexually, but, just with people. And I love good food and love
Yes.
nice things. So, yeah, but I think I'm learning how to slow down a bit more in different areas of my life for sure.
Yeah, that's good because there's also this energy. Libra risings, y'all have this such an interesting path where everything that you're here to learn, you're always balancing opposites, right? Because the North Node in Taurus and the North Node in the eighth house, those are in some ways opposite energies, not necessarily fully opposites, but there's like a contradiction there, right? Similar to having like the moon in Aquarius, but also having that in the fifth house. There's a contradiction there. And so the contradiction with your life's path, not necessarily your life's work, but your life's path, is that you have to learn how to be in your body and you have to learn how to embrace what is pleasurable, what is simple, really embracing that feminine energy. But you're learning like the light feminine and the dark feminine. You're also having to learn how to be empowered, how to let go of things when they no longer serve you, how to say no to something that doesn't create the experience of depth or intimacy that you want or crave or desire. So there's like, it's interesting. There's like a stability required, but also a willingness to walk away required. And those two things are challenging. It's challenging to do both of those at the same time.
So funny you say that. I've been noticing that, especially in relationships for me, like when something like being able to walk away without, not that I'm saying I don't like have, I'm not hurt or I don't feel sad about it or feel like, negative feelings about it. It's just that I'm able to walk away from things when it doesn't feel right or it's not like serving me and it's creating kind of discord within me. I'm just like, oh, I don't like feeling this way. So I don't think that I can keep doing this.
Yeah. And I think that's really important because the eighth house is where so many of our gifts are held. It's where our like psychic gifts, our intuitive gifts, it's where our ability to feel empowered and to trust ourselves comes from. And the journey, you have a lot of eighth house energy, right? You've got Venus there, you've got Pallas there, you've got the North Node there. So the journey of the eighth house is a journey of surrender and learning how to walk away and learning how to navigate the grief that comes from that. And then also learning how to let go of the really like tight grip that we have on reality and on life, and to trust that we're always being led where we need to go. And then if we end up in a sticky situation, that we have the like, for lack of a better word, the like balls to be able to take care of business and do what needs to be done. So there's a lot of, trust in self that comes from the eighth house journey.
I think I'm learning how to trust myself for sure. And maybe that was like conditioning, if we want to talk about how human design talks about you being conditioned as well. Like, and you said that it's more difficult for me. I think I find my way back to myself more from conditioning easier. But I think maybe like the time just that we're moving into now and just at my age and just what's going on in the world, being able to be more authentic and less conditioned to what other people think I should be doing and want me to do, or what you believe you should be doing versus what you really truly feel is right for you or what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing that I love about human design. I mean, our astrology can show us a little bit of our conditioning for sure, but your human design is a journey. It's an experiment. It's not really meant to be this thing that you like, people use it this way and that's fine, but it's not meant to be this thing that you look at once and never look at again and you go, oh, this is who I am. Like you're really meant to develop a relationship with your design and to experiment with, okay, what would it be like if I leaned into this aspect of self? Oh, what parts of me in this map do I feel connected to? And what parts of me do I not feel connected to? And there's a curiosity required with human design because there will often be things in your design where you'll go, oh, that's not really me. But when you start to decondition and then lean into your natural, authentic self, you'll be like, oh, actually, that quality is within me. I just had repressed it or pushed it down. Or sometimes there's qualities that we think we carry, but they're from other places and they're not actually our qualities. There's things that we've adopted for other reasons too. So human design is a little bit more experiential. I do think like manifesting generators, which is what you are, and me too, we are here to live very unconditioned, deconditioned, authentic lives because MGs really teach the world about what happens when you allow yourself to follow your own path. Like our path is not meant to be linear. It's not to be it's not meant to look like something that can be replicated. So as an MG, it is really important that you're doing this work because your path is like has never been done before. So in order for you to find your path, you have to know who you are.
Yeah. I love that. Which is also super encouraging too, to say,
Yeah.
and helps you to decondition in a way, knowing
Yeah,
that.
I think Learning that I was an MG. I mean, obviously there are other parts of my design that has been helpful, but learning that I was an MG was so powerful because it allowed me to operate in the way that I operate. It allowed me to be messy and wild and a little bit chaotic and to pick up something from over here and then something from over there and to put it all together. So as an MG, that is a massive gift that you have, right? And then with you being a 4-6 profile too, there's like a royal regal energy to being a 4-6. Like you are really here to lead people and to guide people. People really trust you. And so it's kind of like as you figure things out, you can bring people along on that journey with you. You can like, you're like, I've mastered this step, let me show you. I've mastered this step, let me show you. And there's a really beautiful balance, I think, between the MG and the 4-6 energy. And then especially now that you're in that second phase. So anyone who has a 6 in their profile has 3 phases of life. 0 to 30 is one. 32, I think it's 57, but I'd have to double check that, is the second. And then 57 on is the third. And so in that second phase of life, you're really here to integrate all of the things that you learned in your 20s, in your teens as a child. And you're kind of like alchemizing that and turning that into wisdom. And it's a really beautiful phase of life because you're meant to be self-focused, and it's meant to be a time or a period where things don't feel as chaotic as maybe they did in your 20s, where things start to slow down a little bit and you're craving a little bit more stability. Are you noticing that at all yet?
I was going to say that's so interesting too. And then talking about where my north node is, it's kind of like
Yeah.
you see these patterns as we were speaking about before within your chart. And that's what I love about human design and about astrology. And I go back and forth in my head. Like I've been looking at astrology since I was a kid. Like my mom, was into astrology and I would read about it. And then when I found out about human design, I was really interested and read all about it. But there's so many people that don't believe in it because they don't really understand that it's like, again, giving you permission to be yourself, and also just things about yourself, but a lot of times we don't have the courage, or and maybe not everyone feels this way, but for me, you don't have the courage, or you think it's wrong, or you question yourself, and this kind of is like, no, this is actually who you're supposed to be. And then it's in both charts and separate, modalities, it's repeated over and over again, showing you that. I love that.
Yeah, it really gives you that permission to show up as yourself. That was the huge benefit for me too. I spent a lot of my early years in life trying to figure out who I was supposed to be and feeling guilt and shame around some of these parts of me that are different than other people. And seeing those aspects reflected in my design really allowed me to embrace them. And that's kind of the journey that I try to bring my clients on all the time, because you're right, it can be very hard to trust these aspects of self if they go against the grain or they go against the status quo, or even if you were just like shamed or conditioned out of them in childhood.
1000%. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
leads into like your inner child healing, and I mean all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's like a whole journey. And your charts too can tell you a lot about like where that rupture in childhood happened and like what exactly you need to reintegrate. So those are some of the things, like when we were talking about the moon archetypes,
Yeah.
where some of those are held, or the fourth house, like it can tell us a lot about some of those early childhood wounds that we experienced.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I know you said last time something about like my Saturn opposing my Venus and then having that square in my chart. I forgot what you said about that, about the square in my chart, like how the energy is focused to if you heal it or something.
Yeah, are you talking about the Moon Pluto square? Because you have a couple. You have a Moon Pluto, you have a Mercury Pluto, you also have a Saturn Moon. Yeah, that one's a bit far. You have a Saturn Jupiter square. Do you remember which one we were talking about?
No, but hey, can you tell me about all of them? And then you said something about like Saturn opposing Venus too. So we can get into that one next, maybe.
Yeah. So I like to see squares in the chart, especially if there are enough sextiles and trines. So squares and oppositions are the red lines. Sextiles and trines are the blue lines if you're using astro.com. And I like to see an equal balance of both, because the squares and oppositions give tension. They create tension in our psyche, which I personally think, and maybe this is because I just have a lot of them, there is this inner drive, this restlessness. And maybe we were talking about your T square. Is that what we were talking about? Yes. Okay. A T square is created when you have two planets that are in a square and then two other planets that are in an opposition. So, for example, you have a Moon Mercury opposition, and then you have that Mercury Pluto square, and then Pluto Moon square. So those three planets are in a relationship together. And T squares create this restless individual. They create this like grittiness, this resilience. There's this inner drive. It often feels like if I don't keep moving, something like I just don't know what will happen if I don't keep moving. And so people with T squares tend to have very successful lives because we just have a lot of grit and resilience. And so, however, there's a need with T squares to find a release point, to find a way to rest and relax. Otherwise, people with T squares tend to burn themselves out. And so for you, there's two release points for you. One is your Pluto in the second house, and then the other is your eighth house. So it's that second house, eighth house axis of finding stability. See, this is where we have so many of these same themes, finding stability, but then also experiencing, having a deeper, more intimate, passionate experience of life. So things like sexuality and intimacy are really good for you. That's a way that you can release some of this energy, but then also making money and developing abundance and wealth and generating resources in your life. Those are two ways where you can start to, they're almost like a release valve for that pressure. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes, that's helpful for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so the moon Pluto, we already talked about that. That's your mermaid qualities. People with a Pluto Mercury square are people who really need to know the why. It's a very investigative, curious, like detective kind of energy. And you guys are driven by the why. Like you need to know all the answers. And there's a highly intuitive psychic element to that as well.
Funny you said that because I always think about this. I was definitely the child who was like, yeah, but why? But
Mm-hmm.
why? Like when a parent would tell me no, or like I couldn't do something, I'd be like, but why not? And then just I definitely need to know why, like even to have like I'm the kind of person that needs like closure in relationships, but why? Like why don't you want
Yes.
to date me anymore? Or like, but why did you do that and make me not want to date you anymore? Or
Yes.
friends and family, anything.
There's also a gift with this of being able to say the thing that no one else wants to say. So there's a bit of a bluntness, there's an intensity, there's a like, I'm going to be honest, even if there's a cost to that.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely true for me. Totally. I'm
Yeah.
I'm definitely very straightforward.
Yeah. That makes sense for sure. And then the Mercury moon opposition almost creates this like challenge between the head and the heart of like what the head wants and what the heart wants are sometimes two different things. What makes you feel mentally nourished is not always what is emotionally good for you. And so you have to learn how to get both of those aspects of self on board. So there's almost like an inner tension that gets created between those aspects of self where you have to figure out like, am I nourishing my moon today? Am I trying to feel emotionally safe today? Or am I going to go out in the world and be curious and playful and joyful and expansive and have that? Because Aquarius moons typically need a lot of time alone, right? Aquarius moons, which is what you have. This might be a bit different because you do have the moon and Jupiter conjunct. So it gives the Sagittarius flavor, but Aquarius moons emotionally need to be able to retreat and to pull back and detach, especially when things get heavy or hard. This is my moon sign too. And I find that if I have to constantly be with people or processing with them or whatever, I get really overwhelmed. Like I will just space out mid conversation. And so for you, balancing that with this Leo Mercury need to be connected to people, especially because it's in the 11th house, to be always out and about and chatting and meeting new people and like flirting and enjoying life and, really experiencing life, those two parts of self might struggle, right? Your Leo Mercury might be like, of course, I want to go out to this dinner event or meet all these people or whatever. And your Aquarius moon is like, no, absolutely not today. And so trying to find the balancing point between those two is part of your life.
That really resonates with me. And it's so funny because I am very social and I'm very outgoing, but I get drained and I noticed that. And, I was in Italy last week with my mom and my grandma and my uncle and his partner. And we were on a tour for like 5 days of our trip. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, even though it was
Yeah.
nice, it was just being around people constantly. I'm like, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't do this anymore. I
Yeah.
need to be alone. Like, don't talk to me. Don't ask me questions, mom. You're driving me crazy. Stop
Yeah.
talking to me. I need to go by myself over here.
Yeah, well, and especially something because Aquarius moon, there's an unpredictability to your moods and to your emotions. And so having everything be scheduled and planned in advance, like a 5-day tour to me sounds like a nightmare. So I see why you're like, that did not work. Did not work.
Yeah, I probably won't go on another tour. No offense to anyone. It was great. The guide was great. The trip was great. It was just like I like being in control of when I can eat, when I can pee, when I can do what I want to do, how long I want to stay at this monument. But
Yeah, exactly. It's Aquarius moon does not do well with other imposed rituals or routines, right? If you create the routine or you create the ritual, then it's fine. But if other people are telling you we're doing this from 9 to 12 and then we're eating at 12 and then we're whatever, that is an outer or an external opposed limitation that Aquarius moons just do not like. It creates a very rebellious energy.
I get it. Totally get
Yes,
that.
it's why a lot of Aquarius moons are entrepreneurs.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so those are the aspects involved in your T square. And then this Saturn Venus opposition. Most of my clients have some version of this, maybe not most, but a good portion. And this is because people with the Saturn Venus opposition or square or conjunction um, really have to learn how to trust the feminine. There's like an inherent distrust with certain elements of the feminine. Often people with this can present very feminine, right? Like you're a Libra rising, so you present very feminine, but there can be a lack of trust in, is it safe to receive? Is it safe to slow down? Am I good enough as I am, or do I have to prove my worth? There can be a challenge with experiencing pleasure, with feeling worthy of pleasure, feeling worthy of happiness, feeling worthy of, a soft girl kind of life. And I do find that sometimes people with the Saturn Venus opposition feel like they have to hustle for their worth, feel like they have to do things to be lovable. And that's the conditioning that you have to work through when you have that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I've seen two therapists that
Mhm.
regularly, and with both of them, my one therapist talks about like me reaching a pleasure barrier where I feel guilty that
Yes.
I receive good things and like I need to learn how to be in the feminine more and be open to receiving because I'm blocking myself from having what I want because you can either be living in fear or guilt, right? With those two ways of blocking yourself most people have so that's one thing. And then my other therapist too tells me I need to the one, my most recent one was telling me how I need to be more receiving and not be so masculine and mentalized with everything and learn how to be softer and not try to like predict and control, especially I'm single still. So we talk about relationships and how going into it like in a very mentalized place is over controlling and trying to control everything. So I need to stop doing that.
Yeah, learning how to rest and receive and just like be present is a really big part of your life's lesson. And it's part of your Saturn journey, right? Our Saturn in our chart really speaks to where we have lessons, where things are going to be a little bit more challenging. Saturn Venus women do tend to find their partner later in life. Also, too, because Saturn Venus women require a very mature partner. And so there is part of that isn't necessarily you being punished by the universe. It's just that the type of relationship that is going to be nourishing for you is going to have a lot of maturity on your end and on your partners. So there's just like a natural order of that, but you do have to learn with Saturn Venus connections how to be mature in love in order for love to come to you, while also learning to balance that masculine and feminine.
Wow, yeah, that makes so much sense. That's so helpful. Well, that's I was going to ask you what about love? So I think you told me like what kind. Oh, so you
Mhm.
told me I need a partner that's mature and
Yeah, and that might be a little challenging in the sense of like you're drawn likely to Aries energy, which in the high road is a very confident leader type of person. The low road is a very immature person who presents as confident but is actually immature. So you just need to vet them well. And you need to be with someone that really honors your independence. And then your Juno is in Libra though. So your partner does have to be able to be a partner, like to really contribute to you and to be um present for you in a big way.
so funny about what you just said about that Aries energy. Like it was one time I was like looking at all the guys that I had been in longer relationships with, not just that I went out with a few times, but they were all
Yeah.
fire signs. And I was like, man, I need to check that out. And I had one guy, this he's a fire sign, tell me literally he's immature. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
and then I have another guy that I was dating that's younger than me, and he's actually really mature emotionally for his age, more than guys that I've dated that are my age. So that's why I just enjoy spending time with him, but still not mature enough in other.
Right. Yeah, and you're gonna have to find that balance between someone who is like mature and grown and wise. There's a wisdom element there, but who also is fun and playful and brings some of that fire sign energy. Like your relationship cannot feel like boring. That won't feel fulfilling for you.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I just want to ask you about career too,
Mhm.
because we talked a little bit about that and just kind of what I was wanting to do, like somatic therapy and helping,
Yeah.
women with sexuality. That's kind of the road that I think I'm going to be taking.
Mhm. Yeah. Is that still all feeling really like resonant and correct for you?
Yeah, I'm taking a course this summer on like a somatic course, particularly like focusing
Perfect.
on sexuality.
Yeah.
So when I say sexuality, I want to help women own themselves and come back into themselves and be embodied in themselves enough so that there's a lot of shame and a lot of like fear and a lot of, I guess, fear to speak up and show up even not for your own body image, but intimately with a partner too, like to be able to voice what you want, say no, say yes, tell them exactly what you need, know what you like in your body. And I think that is something that I really would like to help women with because I've
Yeah.
I've gone through all of that body image stuff and really have a much more healed relationship with myself, and I feel a lot of acceptance and appreciation and can honestly say I know what it means to have self-love and authentic genuine appreciation for myself. So I want to
Mhm.
help women with that, and then that like leads into being able to show up that way in a sexually intimate relationship. And I know, there's a lot of shame and fear, like I said, associated with your body as a woman.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is a blend of your North Node and your Midheaven because your Midheaven is in Cancer. So people with the Midheaven in Cancer tend to create a ton of emotional safety for people. Some of the best therapists, are Cancer Midheavens because there's this like warmth, this nourishing, this like, oh, when I'm around you, I feel safe energy, which I think is really powerful when you're doing therapeutic work. You also have Ceres on your midheaven, right? And Ceres is the goddess, the mother goddess. She's sometimes known as Demeter. I know we talked about her a bit, and she is so powerful. She really rules over death and transitions and sexuality in her own kind of way, but also healing from like sexual assault and all of these, different pieces. She really connects us to our bodies and to that very like dark divine feminine. She's one of the only goddesses that still has like a cult following actually to this day. There's still people who are following her. Yeah, and then you have your North Node in the eighth house. So feeling comfortable in intimacy and in sexuality is a really big part of your journey too. And so I think like your career is really you aligning both of those parts of self, which is going to require you to grow a lot. It's going to require you to heal a lot, but it also is going to allow you to become the teacher of the thing that you had to learn.
I love that. Yeah. I don't know if I have any other questions, but anything else you see in my chart before we wrap up here?
Let's see what else. I'm going to pull up your design. Yeah, I think we didn't really talk much about your 1/8 channel, but I think that channel is really important for people to know about themselves because the 1/8 channel in human design requires that you are being true to yourself in everything that you do. The 1/8 is a natural trendsetter, it's a natural influencer, it's really about inspiration and creativity. And so everything you do in life, but especially in your career, has to be because you want to do it and not because it's like a logical good idea. So if you have this tendency to overanalyze and to make decisions from a place of logic, a big part of your work is coming into your heart and just trusting your sacral energy, trusting that you're being led where you want to go or where you need to go, because the 1/8 energy is so expressive and creative and authentic and individual. And so also too, your path and your life probably will not look the way than anyone else's, especially because you blend that with being a manifesting generator. Um, and even back to the piece where you talked about overanalyzing and thinking and living in your head a lot, you have an undefined crown, well, an open crown and an undefined ajna. So you're not really meant to make decisions from the mind at all. Like that is not a defined part of your chart. That is your conditioning. So something you can do when you notice yourself spiraling is like getting away from the situation or getting out into nature or getting somewhere where you can get clarity and where you can empty that and not pushing yourself to know or to figure things out all the time.
Wow, interesting. That's so
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, I know it's tough. And this is where like conditioning is, right? Like these are the areas of life where like you are not meant to be overthinking things and trying to figure them out, but we live in a society that tells us that that's what it means to be intelligent or to make good decisions. So of course you've been doing that, but your best decision making comes from your sacral, from listening to your gut and trusting your gut, even if it doesn't make sense.
I love that. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
reminder. I know I
Yeah.
have to be better about the uh-huh, the hell yes, or the F no.
It can be hard, right? It takes a lot of work to learn how to listen to that part of self.
Absolutely. And I want to know something about you. So I know you used to be a social worker and a therapist and work with people with relationships. And as someone that wants to do that as well, how do you think that that has really helped you in astrology? Because it does make you really unique. And I know there are a lot of therapists that do actually, like Carl Jung was, he looked at his clients' astrology charts without even telling that, without
Yes.
making public knowledge, his daughter did after he died, right? So how do you think that that has influenced you in astrology or helped you understand people's patterns better?
Yeah, I think because there's a few different pieces. I think it allows me to be a more ethical astrologer, if I'm being honest, because I have that understanding of these certain things like self fulfilling prophecy. Like, I never tell someone negative about themselves because the moment you believe something about yourself to be true, whether it's negative or positive, you will start to create that as a self fulfilling prophecy. I'm very mindful about the way that I speak to people about who they are. And I really see astrology and human design as this thing that needs to be approached with integrity, because if it's used in the wrong way, it can create a lot of confusion for people and not necessarily be beneficial. My whole goal with astrology and human design is to help people love themselves and to be more confident. And so I really approach it from that lens. And I think the I have my degree in social work, but I studied psychology for a lot longer than I did social work. It's just that the path to being a therapist where I live is easier if you take the social work path. But if that wasn't the case, I would have went more psychology, and specifically like the neuropsych route is where I like really like I love neuroscience. So I think it allows me to be more ethical, but it also allows me to I have a whole other wealth of knowledge that allows me to see and interpret these, astrological or spiritual things in a different way.
I love that, and I find that so interesting, and that's why I'm drawn to you, obviously,
Yeah.
because I'm interested in the same things. So it's so
Yeah, we're
great.
so similar. Even our charts are so similar.
Oh, yay, I love that. I mean, we if you don't have to tell me, but what other what do we have in common?
We
We have
have
a
like the Aquarius moon, right? We're both manifesting generators.
yeah,
You've got a lot of Libra energy. I've got a lot of Taurus energy. So there's those like Venusian qualities. And then you have a lot of the moon archetypes, which I do as well.
awesome. Well, you know what, Giselle? I'm so happy to have gotten to know you a little bit better and have these readings with you. It's been super helpful. You guys that are listening, I just opened myself up like a book and told you, I'll
Yeah,
tell
you
you
got
all my dirty secrets.
yeah.
So, if you guys are interested in getting a reading, Giselle, where can they find you?
At the Cosmic Laundry on Instagram, TikTok, or www.thecosmiclaundry.com.
Yes, and you guys check out her pages. She has a lot of offerings for courses and group work and obviously readings. So it's well worth it. And she's super knowledgeable and super helpful.
Thank you so much. I loved doing this. I loved being here.
Same. Giselle, thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye,
Bye,
girl.
everyone.